For the girls and women who are talented, passionate, and driven.
For the girls and women who get excited about solving problems using numbers.
For the girls and women who are drawn to cars and want to know how they work.
For girls and women who want to save the planet through technology.
For the girls and women whose passion for something comes easy when their career does not. We see you and understand your interests and desire to make a difference pursuing a career in science, engineering, technology, and math.
We are Trailblazers Live.
Our mission is to create meaningful videos and content that inspires STEM pathways, empower new possibilities for future career pathways, and connect powerfully with women and girls everywhere for an equitable future.
We are ridiculously committed to connecting problems of tomorrow with the people who need to solve them.
We are calling you forth to join us.
Sponsor us and subscribe now.
We are for the girls and women, and our future is waiting.
Hello and welcome to Trailblazers Live. We are here with the most anticipated panel, Women in Architecture, brought to you by the Cunningham Group, Keyot, and MsFits Media. I'm Sarah Patnode. I'm coder of MsFits Media, and I am Command Central here for our live panel today. So before I hand it over, I want the listeners out there to get your questions ready. We are going to have a Q&A segment where you can put your comment in on either YouTube or on Facebook, where we will get to your questions. So I'm going to hand it over to you. So welcome very much for being here. I'm going to hand it off to Amanda Savarsky to get us kicked off. Hello, Amanda.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for our Women in Architecture panel. I'm your co-host, Amanda Savarsky, with our guest moderator, Darien Levy, that are going to be kicking off this panel today. So Trailblazers Live is the brand evolution of the mentoring event paddle model that was originally created by Million Women Mentors Minnesota and Keyot as a vehicle to expose, experience, and encourage more women and girls towards careers in STEM. So why did we evolve our model? We used to do these very large in-person events, and we had to completely pivot due to the pandemic into this virtual experience. Amidst the pandemic, young women at key decision points of their lives have lost several of the common channels that many of them utilize to guide them along their career pathways, such as mentors, career counselors, job shadowing, internships, and corporate tours. Our goal is to provide those young women across the world a virtual alternative through Trailblazers Live to supplement the absence of these support channels for them to be able to research and learn more about the world of STEM from other women who have blazed STEM trails before them. So before we dive into the panel, I first want to highlight a couple of statistics around the architecture, engineering, and construction industry. So as you can see on the first picture there, gender distribution by job title, women are gravely underrepresented in architecture, engineering, and construction. Additionally, on the age and gender distribution image, you will notice that women disproportionately leave the industry for a multitude of reasons. Now, if you're a young woman that's watching our panel today and you're thinking to yourself, man, it's tough to consider an industry where there aren't currently a lot of women, I just want to share this briefly with you and then hand the mic over officially to Darien. When Sarah and I were approached, a couple of months ago around doing this architecture, engineering, and construction series, we were almost overwhelmed with the amount of organizations, individuals, support programs that are, quite frankly, I would say completely unified against increasing gender and racial diversity within this space. So that is so inspiring, and quite frankly, we're doing the little bit that we can to also play our part in that movement. So without further ado, I want to hand the mic over, as I mentioned, to Darien Levy, who's going to facilitate our panel today with 3 rock star women in architecture. Darien?
Thanks, Amanda. Yes, like she said, my name is Darien, and before we get into the questions for the panel, just wanted to introduce myself really quickly. So I am a senior at the University of Minnesota, and I am studying TV journalism. So I love anything and all things that have to do with video, whether I'm behind the camera or I'm editing a video or I'm in front of the camera, or in this case, webcam. So when Sarah and Amanda reached out, I jumped at this opportunity right away because, like I said, I love anything that has to do with video, but also anything that has to do with highlighting women, specifically women in STEM. So I'm really honored to be able to be a part of this panel and moderate for you all. And so let's just hop into the first question. So we have our 3 lovely panelists here. First question, we'll start with Coffee, and then we'll just go from there. So first question is, tell us about your trailblazing educational journey to become and whatever you are.
Well, I'm Coffee Polk. I'm a project architect at Cunningham Group in our Las Vegas office. And the road to get here was very circuitous and odd. This is not my first career. My bachelor's is actually in film photography and visual art. And then I went to California and I worked in the film industry there for a number of years, discovered the art department and construction departments there, got really excited about it. And then when I got sick of trying to find a new job every 3 months, I went back to grad school for architecture, and that's how I got here. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey, but I wouldn't change it.
Lani, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, my name's Lani Pretty. I'm also a project architect at Cunningham Group in our Minneapolis office. For me, it was a little more of a direct educational route. After I finished high school, I went to college at the University of Minnesota. I was undecided for a couple of years, actually, and took a lot of kind of strange classes that weren't going to get me anywhere. And I discovered some architecture history classes. So I started taking some of those, and then I decided I wanted to get into the architecture program. So after the first year, we had to apply to get into the architecture school. So we had to submit a portfolio and some other things. And so I did, and I got in. And so that's what I decided to do. And then I became an architect after a few years after school. So yeah, that's my journey.
And Mariah.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Morayma Beto. I'm a senior technical designer at Cunningham Group in the Denver office. My journey is a little bit probably different than many people. I grew up, was born and raised in Venezuela, where I got a bachelor's in architecture. And I remember finishing high school and having to go through a test that you will use to define what career you wanted to study. And I remember that some of my friends, they were very specific. Oh, you can go into this field or this other one or engineering. And the results of mine were, well, you can study whatever you want. And I was very frustrated because I didn't know where to go. And I remember having to select 3 different careers, and you could repeat one twice. So don't ask me why, but I selected architecture, structural engineering, and architecture. And I guess thinking back, it was because I love math, and I thought that would be great. So I was accepted at the architecture school, and I graduated. I finished a bachelor's in architecture. And then I moved, I worked there for a little bit and then moved to the US. And then I focused my career into something that is part of what we do. I love specifications, and I'm a certified construction contract administrator. So I do a lot of site observations. So that's where I ended up being. I love what I do, and I love working for Cunningham Group. So.
Great. That's awesome to hear. You guys have such different stories and really inspiring to hear. So moving on to our next question, tell our viewers about yourself and your passions and how your career aligns with those passions.
Coffee, do you want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. So I am originally from Western Pennsylvania and then went to school in the middle of nowhere, New York State, and then moved to Los Angeles, and then got hired at Cunningham Group and moved to Las Vegas. Travel is one of my passions, so I'm glad I got to live in different places, and I'm really glad that, being a project architect means that sometimes I get to go to really interesting places to do site visits and research. But mostly I'm a nerd. So anything that's science fiction, I'm all over it. If it's math, I'm not so all over it, but I'm actually interested in how it works. I'm just bad at it. And then, travel, as I said, and I really, really love detailing in architecture. So it's probably the fiddliest bit of problem solving that you can get in a documentation set. Where do you want to keep the water out? Where you might want water to go in? How does this bit connect to this other bit? And when it's really interesting, because the designers have an idea, and as the project architect, your job is to get that idea buildable. And so sometimes they don't align very well. Most of the time they will, but occasionally there's something really weird that might not work out so well, and your job is to solve it. I really enjoy that. So, Lani, what's your passion?
Hi. Well, one of my big passions that I've had for a long time is photography. I used to have a big camera with the big lenses, but now it's pretty much out of date. So I take a lot of photos wherever I go with my camera or with my phone, and then I'll edit them later and post them to Instagram, or sometimes I blow them up. And I've donated some of my photographs for our we have an art show every year where all of the employees will make art and then donate it, and then people come and they can bid in a silent auction on it. So I've done a lot of that. I love travel as well. So I've gotten to travel quite a bit for Cunningham Group, going to sites. And also, unlike coffee, I like math. I've always been good at math, and it's just one of those things growing up that I've always been known for. I was always good at math, and I was always good at art. And still to this day, my girls will come to me, "Mom, I can't figure out this math program, help me out." And one of my friends the other day, her son couldn't figure out a math problem also. So she called me and she said, "Can you help him through this?" So we had a little FaceTime session, and I helped walk him through how to do it. And, each one of these little problem solving things like Coffee was talking about, it's just fun to figure this out, whether it's a math problem or figuring out a detail in construction, or, just anything of that sort of type. So that's what I'd say are my passions. So Morayma.
Yes. Well, my passion is I love dancing. So, but of course I don't apply that into architecture. but I guess, my passion aligns with having a STEM job or career. And in a way, it's because I'm a very disciplined person. And I just want to share for the people that are listening to us that don't know too much about the architecture, the career. We do many things. And it's not just pretty drawings, and which is, it's amazing. But some of us do some of the technical and maybe considered boring items for others, but I love it. And so we all do certain things. And I guess I'm very passionate about being organized. I'm extremely disciplined, and I have a list for everything, and I follow everything. And, in our career, we need that. So being passionate about the way I am, I apply that very much and with so much joy to what I do.
Well, great. It's really cool to see so many different interests from all of you and kind of how that aligned and gave way to where you are today. So moving on to the next question, describe a day in the life of you at your work. And if it's applicable, tell our viewers how the pandemic has impacted what you do and or how you perform your responsibilities. Coffee, you want to start again?
I'll start again. I just want to correct Lani on one point. It's not that I don't like math. It's a foreign language to me. So I'm fascinated by how it works. It just doesn't quite click with me. And once you add the alphabet to math, I'm out. Inches and feet and metric, I'm good. So, but anyway, my day starts pretty early because I'm a morning person. So I'll be, especially now that we're in the pandemic and our hours are a little bit more flexible and I work from home. So I'll probably be in the office, anytime between 6:30 and 7 o'clock in the morning. And depending on what's going on, I could be checking contractor submittals, which is like after we've drawn everything and gotten our building permit, the contractor gets all the pieces to build with, and then they submit samples of those pieces, either on paper or physically, for us to check, yeah, that's what you're supposed to use. And so I'll do that in the mornings. I will continue drawing on a different building set. We do a lot of 3D models, so I'll work on that. What else? If it's a really good day, I get to go out on the site. And so that's always fun because you never know what you're going to encounter. So it's really interesting to see, what you've drawn become a 3D object in actual real life space. So, there's a big difference between I've drawn it and think it's going to look like this, and then you get out in the field and you're like, oh, that feels bigger than I thought it was going to be. That's a good thing. So that's always very interesting. And yeah, that's pretty much it. The pandemic's been a little weird for site visits and what have you, having to, get additional permissions, and then everybody around you has masks on, and, people are yelling across the site, and it's even harder to understand people with masks on. But other than that, there's not a whole lot of day-to-day change in what I do. So, Lani?
Well, for me, it depends on what point in design and construction the building I'm working on is, and that depends, that will affect what I'm working on in a day. So in the early stages of design, we'll be working a lot with the designers to try and figure out how this building is going together, how big it's going to be, what it's going to be made of, that type of thing. And we start doing these 3D drawings, and then we refine them over quite a few months until they're ready for construction drawings. So then after the construction drawings are issued, like Coffee was talking about, we engage with a contractor who sends us the submittals, and then they have a lot of questions normally about our drawing sets. So RFIs, request for information. We get a lot of those from the contractor. It's just something where they ask a question like, what does this detail look like? Because we don't always detail every little piece of the building, because that would be kind of a waste of time, actually. So we detail really what we think is necessary to build it. And then later during construction, a lot of the little things come out, little things that you wouldn't think of. And then also we would normally be on site observing the construction. But now we can't do that, obviously, because of the pandemic. And we've all been working from home since last March, and it actually has been going pretty smoothly. We'll have a check-in normally with our team in the morning. So we'll have a Zoom meeting, where everybody talks about what they're working on or any issues we're having or that kind of thing. So we still do keep in touch quite a bit. It's just we're each isolated in our own little office. So other than that, the pandemic really hasn't affected us that much. So I think we've been working all pretty well together. So yeah, that's it.
So for me, as I said, I always have a list for everything. And I plan my days very much. So sometimes I get in our internal chat, coworkers asking, did you see my message? No, because I try to ignore them when I'm focused on something. So I started like coffee very early in the morning. I'm a more early person, and I start a little bit before 10. When I am at my desk, I already had breakfast, coffee, everything. I'm working. And I plan it in a way that, okay, what are the things that I need to do first so that others can be working while I have my time to do my other tasks. And it varies, as Lani said, and coffee. It depends of in which phase we are, the interaction that we have, maybe higher or more with the consultants, or it could be with the owner, or it really varies. And I was actually the first one to start working from home. So it's been a year for me. It was going to be next week, January 21st, a year for me for personal reasons. And at the beginning, I didn't know how that was going to be. But so when the whole company started working from home in March, I was already a pro because I was already set up to do it. And the pandemic has affected what I miss is the direct interaction. Some people are very technology oriented. That's not me. They love to be on a screen and looking at a screen, looking at a phone. That's not me. So, and even in a meeting, you will never see me with a phone in my hand. And so that is, it was a little bit hard to get used to communicating through a screen with someone. But I try to balance my days, trying to spread out the Zoom meetings as much as I can, to having a break at midday. That's very valuable for me to get more energy and, focus the time that I will be answering emails versus just if I get an email, I do not answer it immediately. I have my time to answer emails. And then, try to talk to people because the technology is amazing. Our company give us everything that we need, but sometimes there is a human being after that email, and it's good to grab the phone and make the connection because those things, emails don't have feelings and don't have, it's not that you use the feelings in your work, but there is always a human being that you're dealing with. So.
All right, great. So one last question before we move on to our Q&A section of the panel. So make sure if you have any questions that you leave those in the comments. So this question is, what are the cool things that a person in your position does that enhances the lives of others and makes the world a better place? Coffee.
Oh, so many different answers for this one. You know, as an architect, you have the ability to impact the spaces that people inhabit on a day-to-day basis, as well as the places that you go for special occasions. So one of the things that I work on sometimes are theme parks. And, you know, some people will say, oh, that's kind of frivolous. It doesn't really make the world a better place. But I think joy makes the world a better place. And a lot of people like to go to theme parks because they're fun and they're entertaining and, you know, they're joyous. And so I love working on those because, again, super nerd. So it's a lot of different sorts of architectural challenges in building types like that. You know, when you have a roller coaster that goes inside a building and outside a building, there's a whole different set of concerns that you've got for that than you do when you're working on a hospital. You know, hospitals are equally challenging and fun. They're just different. So, and then, you know, because we, as a design profession, impact the built environment so much, we have a lot of responsibility to make sure that we are trying to be as sustainable as possible with our designs. You know, we want to improve the global conditions, and buildings use a lot of carbon and they use a lot of energy. And so our job is to help get all those numbers down so that, you know, we have a better planet to live on. And, you know, honestly, I mean, as huge a responsibility is that is, it's still a lot of fun to make it happen. So, Lani.
Okay, well, I'll answer this then. For me, it's about working with the people, the client, because early on when we meet with them, we help them come up with a list of things that they want, spaces they want, what kind of functions these spaces are going to do, you know, what kind of materials they want to see. And so we basically take their vision and we make it into a built form. So when we see the final product and the owner and the client sees the final product and they're just so excited about it, that I think is really cool. Just because we're helping them with whatever their building is that they're building for whatever purpose, and helping them either do their job or, you know, just have a nice space that they can enjoy. So I think that's what does it for me. Morayma.
Yes, so I agree with Lani and Coffee. And I think one of the cool things is that being in a career in a field that impacts everyone, you know, it's like from a church to a house to a school to an office building to a municipal building. It's everything. Our hands are everywhere. And that is super cool. And there is something that I love about being in this field is because we have so much appreciation for what we see and how the buildings are inside, that it's kind of funny because people recognize that we are in the architectural field when we go to a restaurant and start looking at the ceiling, and nobody looks at the ceiling. You know, they're maybe looking for the menu and sit down and enjoy the food, but we start looking for the table, the carpet, the ceiling, the finishes. You go to a church and it's the same. You go to an office and we're just looking everywhere. And it's super cool to be able to tell people, like I do, like I tell my friends, if you come to the Denver International Airport, look up, look at the tensile structure that reminds the mountains. And they're like, really? Oh, I'm glad that I did. It's super cool. And I'm like, see, otherwise you miss that. You miss out. And so I think that for me is the best, being able to tell someone, hey, when you go to that place, look at this. Or did you notice the stairs? There's a story about the stairs on that building. So I think that's my favorite.
All right, great. So now we're moving on to the Q&A section of the panel. So we've got a few questions sent in. The first one reads, was there a defining moment that pivoted your life to pursue this career? What was that, or who was that made that difference for you?
I can answer this one. For me, it was when I was a kid. I was about 10 years old, and my parents hired an architect to design their house. So the architect would come to our house, our old house, and with his drawings, and would come and meet with my parents every few weeks or so. And I just loved looking at this vision that he had and what the house was going to look like. He had a couple details, and I just thought it was really, really cool that he could help us understand what it was going to look like. And yeah, in the end, it turned out really great. And after that, I just decided to take more art classes and math and science and that sort of thing to learn more about it. But I didn't actually take architecture classes until I got into college. But that was kind of my start. So.
I don't think I have one particular pivot point. I think I have like a building block stack of pivot points instead, because as I mentioned earlier, I didn't get here right away. It took a while for, me to go through the various career paths. And then it was kind of like what can I do that synthesizes all the things that I have done and the things that I love about that into something that I can continue doing, for as long as I feel like doing it, which is one of the great things about architecture. Like, nobody really forces you to retire in architecture. You decide to retire because the amount of knowledge that you build up is really, really useful to whoever you're working for, or if you're working for yourself. Like, just that depth of knowledge is, you can't really replace that. You can pass the knowledge on. But, as an architect, you're always learning forever, every day. Like, every day there's something new that you didn't know before. And that's part of what makes it really exciting.
I can briefly share, not so much why I got into architecture, because I already said it, but why I got into my passion about specifications and products and all that. And it was because when I moved to the US and I got my first job in an architecture firm, I couldn't believe that there were so many options that I needed. My first task was to pick a cabinet for a fire extinguisher. And when I was given what it used to be called the suite catalogs, big, thick, heavy books that then with technology and computers ended up being the doorstops. I was just going through pages and pages and pages, and I'm like, I just thought there was one option, but not like hundreds. It was just so many. And I'm like, and so that was really, that inspired me to getting to know, how are these things done and how architects pick the materials. And so sky's the limit.
Great. All right, moving on to the next question from the Q&A section. What was the hardest / challenging experience that you had in your career that you attribute to being female, and how did you handle it?
Oh, this one. So I've had this happen a number of times. The first time it happened, I was working in film, and it's always, the older gentlemen who call you sweetheart on the job site or whatever. And so after about the third time that happened, I just started using pet names for them, and they got mad, but they stopped calling me sweetheart or honey or whatever. So, it was kind of, I would rather diffuse the situation by just being like, I'm doing it to you. Like, if you don't like it, then, I probably don't like it either, as opposed to getting all kind of like puffed up and, telling them other, because then they expect that. They expect you to get mad, but they don't expect you to be like, okay, sugar palm, whatever. Like, that it makes them stop and think. And that's been very useful, throughout my career. I think the last time I had to use that was, maybe right the project I did right before the pandemic. I was on a job site and, electrical contractor, but, he thought it was super funny. So, but he didn't do it again.
I can go on this one. Luckily, it hasn't really happened to me personally in a long time. One of the first times I remember was early on in my career. I started at a firm when I was still a student. And then I got married, I got my license, I had a baby, so I was off for a while, and I came back to my job, and I had some pushback from my previous employer. He was used to me being there all the time, but since I had a new baby, I had her in daycare, and so my hours had to change. I had to, leave early, or if she was sick or something, I had to stay home for the day. Needless to say, I didn't stay there very long after that. So, and after that, I actually came here to Cunningham, and I've been really lucky that Cunningham is actually so supportive of women and their causes. And actually, a lot of it comes from the male coworkers. I've had situations where I was going to go to a job site. And so one of my male coworkers had kind of talked me up to the contractors before then, saying, "Oh, she's really tough. Don't mess with her. She means business." So by the time I get out there, they're expecting, this, big tough woman. But yeah, I'm pretty much a softie. But after that, initial introduction where we work well together, and so that seems to have worked for me. Just the male coworkers having your back. That I think is huge. So, yeah.
For me, it's not so much for being a female in the architectural. It's been other situations like dealing with having an accent or not knowing how to call certain things the right way. But I guess, at the end, I have made that like a way to make people laugh when I just mispronounce something or say something that means something else. And I have to say, it is not easy. I'm not going to say that being a female in a men's-dominated field is super easy. No. But I think things have changed so much that I encourage any women that wants to get into a STEM job or career. You have to do it. It's just, it's a matter of finding the right place to work, and you're always going to be surrounded by mentors and people that are above you, that teach you. I had that blessing of always having people that were supportive of what I was learning. And yeah, it is scary to go on your own on the first time. But I have to say, if I can leave something, is to say that you don't have to know everything. And for me, people know that if someone asks me something and I don't know, the first thing that I will say is, I don't know, I'll find out. Instead of going in circles, trying to pretend that you know everything is not good at all. So, and difficult situations are going to come from a difficult client, a difficult consultant, and they come and go. So, but the times that you have a good team, that you say the project was successful, the team was awesome, they do happen. They do come. It's not always bad. And I just always try to take advantage of the situation in a good way. And are they difficult? Yes. Do you sometimes feel that you want to cry? Cry, but that's okay. And the next time you will do better. People that say that person has a lot of experience, it's like the saying, they've been there, they've done that. So that's all.
Great. Thanks for sharing, you three. Really inspiring stories from all of you, and just knowing that you're all in male-dominated fields and you face these sort of challenges and struggles, but are still able to make light and see the positive sides. It's very inspiring. So just wanted to say that before we get to our final questions, and basically just asking if you have any final words of advice to a young woman considering a career in architecture, but unsure where or how to begin.
Find an architect. I mean, I know that sounds basic, but and if you don't know where to find an architect, check with your local Architects Institute of America, AIA chapter. They're all over the country. The members are more than happy to give you time to answer questions, and because we want to see the profession grow and evolve too. So by helping you, we're helping us. It's you guys are the future of the profession. So we want to bring you in. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Lots and lots of questions. Talk to as many architects as you can find. Talk to engineers. Talk to people who build things. Talk to the contractors and electricians and the client side, the people who are going to build buildings. Whatever you happen to have handy in your circle, somebody knows somebody who knows somebody who knows an architect. And you'll be able to get to it that way if you don't want to go directly through the AIA. But yeah, networking, it works. And so does your local AIA chapter. Seriously, they love to help.
Job shadowing is something that we like to do. I mean, you could even just contact any architecture firm out of the blue and ask if, you could come in and just, follow somebody around for a day. Our lives aren't all that glamorous, but we love to share what we do. So, you could contact one of us, you could contact really any architecture firm. And I'm sure there would be, a lot of people that are more than willing to help you out, to answer any questions, that sort of thing. So yeah, I recommend a job shadow just to kind of see what we do, because we can talk about it all we want, but until you actually see us in the office, you don't really know. So that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, two great options. I would say also colleges and universities. Go to a school or contact a school that have architecture as one of the majors, because they will be able to connect you with, maybe a teacher that has their own private practice, and then start the networking. And I love the fact that when we have high school students that come to the office and they spend 15-30 minutes with several of us, they get a little bit of an idea of that it's not just making drawings, that we just go from preparing for an interview and writing a proposal to drawing, preparing details, or they can see the interior designers selecting the materials, or someone researching a product. So those are very good options. And don't give up. Don't give up, because as I told a young girl once, she said, "Oh, it's just that my teacher, my art teacher is terrible." Don't let, the same way that we have good teachers and not so good teachers, if that is your passion, don't give up. Just don't let that define or make you to give up on getting into a STEM career.
All right, well, that wraps up all of our panel questions. I want to first thank all of our incredible panelists for sharing your experiences, your stories, and encouraging everyone out there to reach out, find a mentor, a job shadow experience, etc. And also, thank you so much to Darien for facilitating this panel today. Up on the screen, I have listed both all of our Trailblazers Live to stay posted on any upcoming panel experiences. We'll be pushing them out on Trailblazers Live, but then also resharing on Million Women Mentors Minnesota. You'll also note that we've got our email listed there, trailblazerslive@keyot.com. If you are a young woman in STEM that is looking to share your stories and experiences with other young women that are out there, shoot us an email. Let us know. We are always open to doing both spotlight as well as panel interviews with anyone that is willing and able to share their story in order to inspire other young women out there. Sarah, I'm going to pass the mic over to you to close us out.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Everyone, thank you so much. I loved hearing about you're creating your experiences when you're meeting with your clients. You're taking the vision and bringing that into a built form. I mean, talk about making your mark in a physical way too. It's just wonderful. And so there are such great stories that you have shared today. And what I want to say to the viewers that are watching now is that we see you, we're here for you. This is the whole reason why we're creating content like this, so that you know that there's a place that you can go to find more information, to get the support that you need, that you can go forward and go into the career pathways that you are interested in. And so architecture has always been a real big interest of mine. I've always loved it. So it's been so fun to be here with all of you. And we are so excited that we had this time today. So I'm going to sign us off with Trails Blazed. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.